Elio guys, and welcome back to another episode of Infinite Magicraid. And in today's video I'm going to be going into detail about baby girl Jennifer, which this video was requested by, I believe, Ashrafuel is his name, and he was questioning, is there any type of review or kind of like a spotlight in terms of Jennifer or Ascendo. And in this scenario I do have a Jennifer, even though she is on my global account here, so she's only level 100 and she's not booked up here, but I could still go into detail about her and give you a little bit of a spotlight. But in the future probably expect a video in which she is going to be A5 and just make sure that she's decked out, so I can kind of look back on this and say, you know what, I actually did a good call. Because surprisingly Jennifer is a unit that on the surface seems very lackluster, but it turns out I didn't really understand her passive too much, and we will get into that here. So I'm going to go ahead and just quickly break it down to you, but then I'll talk about like her emblems, I'll talk about her gear, and also just how to use her in general so you get the most out of her if you end up pulling her. But anyways, we know that she's an attacker type and she's also the blue mark here. Her first skill is kind of silly because not only does it deal damage, but it also can kind of help her with self-sustainment, and if any of the enemies that you're fighting has a debuff on them, then she gets even more potent heals. So she's kind of able to heal herself based on her basic attack, which is perfectly fine. Her second move, Buggering, this one can inflict severe wound on an enemy, and this can be very helpful for stages like Luna, for example, in the story stages, or the campaign stages I should say, where she can heal herself or heal other units like the Serenas, which can be very annoying. This could also have some big uses in the Tower of Mark, and also in terms of PvP too, because if you're fighting a unit like Fiona and you're fighting Gru and also Luna, or basically any combination of healers and stuff of that nature, you can prevent whoever's about to whoop that ass from healing so you can take them out. So it is understandably a good move. It's just kind of situational, but when you need it, it is there, which is great. Now her passive, I'll go into more detail when we can see it actively going on here. But essentially what it does is that at the beginning of the stages, she gets less damage, but she can also produce more damage. So she isn't necessarily a burst unit, but her mechanic in general is just very interesting. And then after a certain point with this passive, when her bug hums kind of like stack up, she gets to do her ultimate for free, and it doesn't count as her ultimate being cast. You will see here in a quick moment. But yeah, very interesting move. I'm not trying to focus so much on the skills anymore in terms of my reviews though, because you guys can read. Now this is her ultimate. Once again, I said with her passive that she can cast her ultimate for free and you can still do her ultimate again. That in my opinion is very, very sick, and I'm glad that I pulled Jennifer to kind of experience that for myself, because outside of just reading her skills I would have no idea that that was actually the case here. But yeah, there's Bug Dance. This does 3 stages of 100% attack damage to each enemy, so 300% damage. And with this skill fully bugged up, her damage also gets raised up, which is always great, and then she gets stealth applied to her as well. And if you're curious about the lovely stealth here, she can't be targeted by enemies, so that's already a way to kind of mitigate damage off of her right after she's done her ultimate, which I think is great here. Now in terms of the whole exclusive weapon, which they've actually made apparent here, is great. That exclusive level 1, she can do severe wound to all enemies. Once again, that's perfect right here. Exclusive level 2, there is now a 40% chance that she can also reduce enemies' defense by 60%. This is just sick nasty if you get her exclusive level 2. That is super helpful to apply that defense down before her AoE ult, especially if this coincides with her bug hum passive, or basically her passive in general. That means not guaranteed defense down, but you're getting a free defense down within your units. I am all set for that. So exclusive level 3, damage reduction effect is lost, but her direct damage increases. So yeah, that's pretty much the consensus of that. Now when it comes to emblems here, when you guys are deciding what emblems to give your character, because I do have a tier list of where I kind of break down just basic emblem recommendations here, one thing to keep in mind is, remember, what does your character do? What is your character trying to achieve in Infinite Magicraid? In Jennifer's case, not only does she have like some self-sustain on her basic attack, which is nice with the kind of built-in HP restoration, but her second skill right here inflicts severe wound on up to 3 enemies with a 60% chance, obviously unbooked up, and then it also deals 160% attack damage. So that's something to question as well in terms of what you should be building her for here, but already 2 of her moves are focused on damage, so we're kind of orientating ourselves already towards the attacker emblem tree for sure. And then for her last one over here, which is Bug Dance, once again, this is another high damage move, so you want to focus on the attack part of the emblems for sure. And then it leads to the question of, okay, what else should I focus on? So let's go over here to her emblems here. So with attack, especially with attackers, I would always focus on like crit rate on this side, because crit rate is easier to max out than attack. And you know, with crit rate in general too, the higher that your crit rate is, when you crit and have high crit damage, you're going to out damage someone with raw attack unless they had amazingly high raw attack. And if they don't have any crit rate, you're still going to out damage them. But yeah, I would focus on this tree right here for sure. Defense and support is up to you, but just to save you guys some time, I'll take a screenshot of this emblem right here, and I'll kind of do some lines through the emblems of what I personally would choose for her, since obviously mine isn't filled out at this point in time, but you guys can kind of base it off of what you may use or what you may choose to use for her in the future. So I'll just include that right there instead of breaking down all of the emblem trees. Now when it comes to equipment as well, when you first begin the game and you don't have the forge unlocked, or shall I say access to a whole bunch of the spicy gear sets via the forge, I would just focus on attack. And the reason for that, I've stated over in my day 2 recap video and day 1 recap video, is that your sets at this point in time are so basic that they don't really add any crit rate whatsoever. You may have just broken into the Tower of Mark if you're watching this video. Your crit rate just honestly isn't that high at this point, so having a crit rate, like a double crit rate build, isn't really going to do anything. So just focus on raw damage for a basic set right here. Now, once the forge is unlocked and we can get some of the spicy sets, let's slide over here to the forge because I can't remember them right off my dome. This is where things get a little bit more interesting here. So you could put Jennifer on a fearless set because she does have that HP restoration, but I don't really see a point in that because she doesn't have anything dot wise to really benefit from that additional mastery. What I would personally recommend is going to be the Slay set and also the Wild set for her. You could probably do a Slay set, you know, 2 set of the Slay and then 2 set of the Wild here, because you want to have high crit rate, but you probably won't hit max crit rate by herself, especially at the earlier parts of the game. But once your Tower of Mark gets built up more, it'll be a lot more viable to get that crit rate up there. And then also, especially when she crits, you want to make sure with this set right here, with the additional crit rate, but also the crit damage, that she hits like a butt cheek on a stick. So for her equipment, I would definitely recommend the lovely Wild and Slay sets. Now in terms of her use, let's go over here to the gallery so I can actually explain to you what happens here and how you guys can actually use her. As I stated before, her passive is very odd because, you know, when you read it, it kind of makes sense, but it also doesn't. But essentially what her passive does is obviously it kind of mitigates damage from her for a point in time. It also boosts up her damage for a point in time. I do believe it resets. I could be wrong about that, but the most important part about that is just realizing that you literally get free damage out of her. So having her skills scrolled up for sure is a nice bet. So you could start off here with Bug Dance. Alright, so that's one move right there. We see the Bug Hum stacks going up. Keep going. That's the second move. We'll go ahead and pop this second skill. That's the third move. She just did Bug Dance. Remember, look, Bug Dance is still on cooldown. That is what her passive does. Absolutely wild and wacky. I do believe it's 5 times though, because that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it activated there. But if we did Bug Dance first, followed by her second skill, that was 5. So I'm wondering if it changes in the very beginning, because the last time it was only, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 turns. Maybe I have to replay it, but yeah, very odd. So basically with 5 moves, she gets to do her ult for free. So in terms of raw DPS, she definitely does have some unique properties to her. So she isn't someone that I would definitely sleep on. She is very interesting to use thus far. Mine isn't fully booked up, so I can't give you guys a super hot take on her. But at least for now, she's one of those units that on paper seems like she's bad, but in reality, she's actually a big smiley face gamer. And I also forgot to mention her artifacts. With artifacts too, I'd probably focus on crit rate, attack, and then probably speed as well. But the thing in concerns to the crit rate too is that if you guys can get her crit rate up high enough, you could technically drop that crit rate artifact and then actually go for a crit damage artifact if you have a lovely crit rate sub into that. But hopefully this explanation kind of helps you with Jennifer. I apologize that I can't really show her off at this point in time. This is what I've gotten for global. I'm only a couple days into the game if I can click correctly, and you know, I can't really expect to have her A5 fully booked up and just destroying everything at this point in time. But my whole consensus with Jennifer is that she is quite a unique unit, and she's already been helpful in terms of the campaign, as I stated before, with the severe wound of preventing other people from healing. That's going to speak miles and miles, especially as you get later on into the game. So she's definitely a unit worth keeping around. It just really depends on what team composition that you have to rock with you. But I will say double ultimate and one of the ults are free. I'm down with that. But yeah, if you guys have any other requests for some of the unit reviews, feel free to let me know in the comments below, because without that comment, I would have never have known that you guys wanted to see Jennifer. So if there's a specific unit that you pulled and are interested and I haven't done a video review on, let me know. I'll try to get out to you guys as fast as possible. If not, I'll kind of continue on with the daily stuff. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Infinite Magicraid. Play to slay.